Okay, we are live. Hello and welcome to Around the Boxes episode 10 with some special guests today. As you can see on your screen, we are joined today by the one, the only JP Creations. You might recognize him from Webheads Comic Club. And our other special guest today, who you may or may not recognize, but 007Venom, I guess, is the name you're going by these days?
Heat Nation 1
like
is
that.
what I like to call him.
Oh, gee, we're having a Comic Strip 3 reunion right here on the channel. It's my pleasure to bring you guys on as guests to talk about this amazing movie, because we were going to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, and there's no better way to do it than by assembling the biggest Spider-Man fans that I know in one call right here. So that's what
Three
we're
of them,
doing
too.
today.
3 is a big number in this film as well.
What are you talking about? I don't know.
I
No,
don't-
but-
spoilers, nothing.
yeah.
And the most ambitious trio assembled since December 17th, right?
Yeah. I can think of no more iconic trio of people when it comes to discussing Spider-Man No Way Home than the three on this call right now. But this goes without saying, before we dive into talking about the movie, spoiler alert, if you have not seen the movie, you should probably not watch this right now. I feel like that goes without saying. I feel like you probably have already... Is there a person in this planet who hasn't seen the movie yet?
If you haven't watched it, I missed the part where that's my problem.
Yeah, can we just openly talk about that movie now? I mean, come on. I feel like everybody's seen it, but
They'll watch it when you fix the damn door.
yeah.
That's what they'll do.
All right. The references are A+ right now. I appreciate that.
Yeah, if not, I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Oh yeah. But I mean, let's just dive into it, man. What did you guys think? I mean, we did our spoiler warning, so let loose. How are we feeling about it? Best Spider-Man movie ever?
I would
That's the
say that
question.
I am always biased. I will always be biased. I'm a biased person. Spider-Man 1 will never be beaten. The original, in my mind. I say this is number 2.
Okay. But that's more of like a nostalgia win.
Yeah, no, it's fully, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of paradoxical because you can't say this movie is the best movie without acknowledging the previous ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird, right? It's kind of like you can only really do like a tier list, in my opinion. You can put like an S tier, A tier, tier, etc. Right? So right now I have it Spider-Man 2 in this movie as the top, along with Spider-Man 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this movie had everything, right? I watched it a second time, and I was blown away about all the different things that they included. They had no misses at all, but I mean, I feel like Spider-Man 2 is just irreplaceable. Maybe it's just permanently at the top, regardless what you do. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, you can never replace Spider-Man 2 in my heart. Spider-Man 1, I like Spider-Man 1, but like Spider-Man 2 is the one that really I feel like was the best growing up. But I think objectively this is probably the best Spider-Man movie there's ever been. I mean, I don't think you can really argue with that.
It's being ranked on like IMDb and Letterboxd above like all these like cinematic classics. Like all the movie buffs are getting like pissed off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause it's being ranked higher than like super classic movies that movie connoisseurs just praise.
Which I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the film buffs thing against superhero movies. Superhero movies they're movies. Like it.
Just because they're popular movies. You know what I mean? Like these film buffs, they like to think that they're so cool because they have this esoteric taste of music or taste of movies. You know what I mean? And they can understand things more than the average person. You know what I mean?
Well, that's how us
Things
comic
like
book
that, I feel
nerds
like.
feel about superhero movies. So I guess that makes sense.
People just want something to complain about.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
Accurate. Yeah.
Now we're getting into politics or what?
So let's talk about okay. But yeah, I also saw it a second time yesterday. So I feel like watching it the second time, I enjoyed it even more than watching it the first time. Because the first time I was just trying to take it all in, and I was just trying to like guess what was gonna happen next, and like, okay, when are Toby Mcguire gonna show up? When's Andrew Garfield gonna show up? But the second time, I was able to actually process it and enjoy it. And the second time, I gotta say, really made me realize how freaking good Willem Dafoe is in this movie.
Dude, he acted
yes.
his ass off, dude.
Every
Holy
time he
shit.
showed up, I just
Incredible.
could not help but smiling. Like even like as Norman, he's just iconic. Like him as William Dafoe is iconic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just a straight legend of a human.
Well, and his acting, it's like the switch between Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, and I know JP doesn't like that he didn't have his helmet for most of
No,
the
I
movie.
understand. I understand the big two reasons why they did that. One, all the people they brought back, even the Spider-Mans, barely had their mask on because I feel like they thought that people are more here for the actors, so let's just show their face more. So I think that's number one. Number two, I mean, you could see the way he acted with his face throughout the whole thing. So if you put a mask on that, even if it's like a foam latex mask or a silicone mask, you're still gonna take a lot of that
No.
acting in the face away.
Dude, that shot or that fight scene when Spider-Man's like elbowing down on his face
Yeah,
and
he,
he's
like,
just
smiling.
laughing at him, it was like chills. It's just spooky and scary. But
And that spider sense scene too is incredible. Like
So
the
good.
audio editing was
Yes.
so good.
I love how
But have you seen
they showcase his spider sense. Yeah.
But have you seen that TikTok where it's like when you're just chilling in your apartment playing video games and then you hear like this thudding from like the hallway of your apartment complex?
The ice cream, the ice machine's going off or some shit in the middle of the night.
We've all had that moment. But yeah, no, I think the depiction of his spider sense was awesome. Green Goblin. I feel like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin was definitely like the highlight of the movie for me. And watching it the second time, I really realized that he's pretty much the main villain in this movie. Obviously.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. That's what they were saying before the movie came out.
Yeah.
So.
right.
Which is, I mean, obviously he was probably the most anticipated. I do wish Dr. Octopus had been. He was in it a lot, but there was only the one fight scene with him before they had him tied up for the whole movie and then they cured him.
Right.
True.
Like, I wished he would have had more fights. Like, I wish we could have seen him fight Toby Mcguire or Andrew Garfield as Dr. Octopus, but
Two things I'm going to say about the Green Goblin because, I mean, of course I'm going to talk about the Green Goblin.
you're our resident Green Goblin expert, yeah.
Right, right. One, I wish we had a fight scene on the bridge with him instead of him just going through the portal because I would have loved to see the classic costume a little bit more in action.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been nice. Two, why was there zero dialogue between William Dafoe and Toby Mcguire? I don't know.
At the
But-
end, yeah.
Yeah, there was zero. Like they barely even looked at each other,
Yeah.
and he
I
stabbed him.
heard they reshoot. I heard that they reshoot the end. I heard that like Toby was supposed to die, right? They reshot it, but maybe William Dafoe wasn't there for the reshoot, right? Because if they shot it originally, they wouldn't have talked because Toby's dead, right?
Yeah.
So
That's probably the case, actually. Because my hot take, maybe this is a popular opinion, I don't know. I feel like Toby should have died.
No, dude.
It would have been a good closure to his character. Okay, what I'm saying is, the way they did it, he should have died. Like, either don't have
It
him
would've
get
been the
stabbed
best
at
way.
all, but I don't like the fake out. Because as soon as he gets stabbed, you're like, oh my gosh, he's dying. And then it's like, oh, I've been stabbed before, I'm fine. And it's like,
yeah.
I think
I
that's
think
what it
they-
was.
they-
It was a fake note.
I
well,
think
it
a
was
reshoot,
supposed to
honestly.
be. He was
Oh,
supposed
okay.
to die.
Yeah.
Because I've heard the same rumors. He was supposed to die, and then the basically Kevin Feige was like, "Wait a minute, we could bring Tobey Maguire back again later, so we should let him live. Like
Secret
they might
Wars.
bring him back for Secret Wars. They might do another Spider-Man thing, which I'd love to see him back again. But then don't fake out the death. I don't know. It just seemed a little weird. But
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, he's like my childhood hero, right? So it would have been horrible to see him die. You know what I mean?
it would have been
But I
emotional.
would like to see. Would have loved to see his like world, like Mary Jane, like a kid, something like that. I don't know. Maybe we can get that in the future. We don't necessarily need it in the movie, right? But I would love to just see like where his character went in his world, right?
Well, so what I would love to get your guys' take on, I've seen it all over freaking Twitter. Twitter has not shut up about it. Andrew Garfield has been getting a lot of love, and a lot of
Hashtag
people are
Phasm
asking
3.
for Amazing Spider-Man 3. Are you guys
December
for
25th.
or against?
I'm on Twitter.
Why
Bro, what
wouldn't
do you
I
think,
be?
man?
Who says no? I mean, it's just a stupid thing. I mean, it's more Spider-Man
Hey,
content.
because
They
you
do it. Who
were
says
you
no?
were anti-Amazing Spider-Man franchise, James.
Yeah, because those movies kind of sucked, but I like Andrew Garfield.
Those movies were underrated. No, yeah,
They were really
underrated.
good.
I
I
love
like
those
it.
movies.
I will say they are underrated. I like them. I actually like them more than the average public, like a lot more.
Mhm.
And I've grown to like them more as I grow older, because whatever. But
Nostalgic, right?
Yeah.
We were
Not
first
even
hanging out
nostalgic,
when those movies were coming out.
Well, I remember I was a big, I mean, I think even back on the channel, I was a huge critic of Amazing Spider-Man 2 when it first came out, but the more I've watched it over the years, I just rewatched it before No Way Home, like, I love that movie.
but here's
Bro,
the
what's
thing. I
quite funny
love.
is because my memory has me remembering you saying it was the best one ever when it first came out.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but I think I've really gone back and forth, because I remember specifically the first time I saw it leaving the theater feeling really disappointed, but as I've processed it more, like, I love 80% of that movie. The only problem is I hate the other 20%. Any
Yeah.
scene with Harry Osborn and any scene with his parents, I hate in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everything else is great. But I think what they should absolutely do is Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield, with Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom.
Right.
Because the
That'd be
after
lit.
credits
I mean-
was him being like, oh, I should go to New York. So then he goes back to his universe, and he goes to New York, and he finds Spider-Man, and all he knows about Spider-Man is that he killed this Mysterio guy, so he's thinking he's a villain. So he could go and
Right.
fight him there.
That'd be pretty cool. That's actually a good point. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Andrew Garfield, like in No Way Home, he stole the show. Honestly, like he was
Okay.
so good.
That's what I
Like,
want to bring
he-
up though. Sorry, go ahead.
Like I would say, like as far as raw talent as an actor, has the most raw talent. Obviously, like he has the best movies, right? The best writing, all that kind of stuff like that. But you just take, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, raw talent with good writing. One, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Andrew Garfield,
He was
he's
great.
hilarious. He's so funny.
Yeah, he was great.
And his like lanky physique and just like the way he interacts and everything is just straight out of the comic book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you see him, you think he's Spider-Man, right? With Tom Holland, he's kind of short. I don't know. There's something that's off with him. You know what I mean? I think he's a great Spider-Man, but Andrew Garfield is like Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
I think I would love to see, like, they should keep Andrew Garfield going as the Sony Spider-Man. Like, they can make movies for him. They can have him in Venom. They can have him in Morbius and do all of that. And then have Tom be the MCU Spider-Man. I think they can absolutely coexist. Before we keep discussing, though, I want to shout out Batman Comics 87, who said, if they're not doing anything with his character, I think Toby's death would have been better. And I agree. So,
I remember Batman Comic 87. Don't think I forgot about you, bro.
yeah.
An
Legend.
OG right there.
Legend. But he's taking my side, so he's even more of a legend. So I agree with him.
What else is going on in your chat right now, bro?
Yeah, I don't know. Russians are hacking us, but that's, it'd be like that.
Dude, it's freaking Rhino, bro.
What I was gonna say is, so
The Rhino
I,
language.
I know what you guys are gonna say to this because I've heard it, but like the whole thing was like they're bringing everybody that knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man into the world, but Venom also came in there. So how does that work?
Symbiote.
Well,
right?
Right, the
it's
symbiote thing,
my
but it's like-
understanding, and I didn't see Venom 2, so maybe you can elaborate on this, but in that,
Oh, that's right.
in that movie, they mentioned that the hive mind, right?
Yeah.
So he probably has access to the knowledge of Toby's Venom that knows. So maybe, like, the symbiote, that's why?
So the symbiote is like, has a hive mind, right? So the symbiote obviously knows who Peter Parker is because it was joined with Peter Parker, right? And so that's how they knew that it was Spider-Man, right? And that's
Right.
why it came through.
Well,
but my
the
thing
Tom
is, like,
Hardy
what about-
Venom never was, but, I mean, the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a 30-second cameo, so they didn't
Yeah.
make it a big deal, right? But where was all those people on the train from Spider-Man 2? They're just walking around New York City, all those fools that
But they don't know his
shot
name.
his ass off? Potentially.
They just knew his
But
face.
where was Gwen Stacy before she died?
That is true.
Or
I
Captain
did love,
Stacy.
or Mary Jane, yeah. Well, I guess they did say that only some came through. So I guess technically, if the spell had
'Cause,
kept
I mean-
going, they all would have come through.
Yeah, because Strange was able to contain it, right?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
like, the reasoning we can use.
I did love one thing I noticed on the first watch, but especially on the second watch. They had a lot of subtle, like there was obviously some fan service that was pretty obvious, but there was a lot of subtle references to the old movies, like the Roosevelt Island gondola from Spider-Man 1.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know
Was
that
in
movie.
there, and then when he's fighting Doc Ock, a train comes by, which is a pretty subtle thing, but like, the train fight scene, stuff like that.
My favorite Easter egg, which kind of solidifies Spider-Man 1 as the very first MCU movie, is that when Norman Osborn and Peter meet on the steps outside of the field trip, Peter mentions nanotechnology to Norman, because apparently he read papers that Norman wrote about nanotechnology, and that's why Doc Ock is able to recognize nanotechnology, is because his colleague, was researching it, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's pretty cool. You could watch that movie and be like, oh, they're totally setting up for nanotechnology in Iron Man, you know what I mean?
Marvel Cinematic
Kinda crazy.
Multiverse. I did like how to get to see Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn like knowing each other,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
because obviously they never interacted in the original movies, but it was interesting to see them as like colleagues and like knowing each other and talking about each other's death and things like that.
I thought that was weird because in Spider-Man 3, Harry, like his butler has to tell Harry that Norman died from his glider and everything. Yet the news is all around that Green Goblin died from his glider. So
That's
isn't that
good
weird to you?
point. Yeah. I didn't
I'm
think
not
about
sure. I'd have to
that.
rewatch it.
No, I think you're right.
Because I mean, Harry did lose his memory and then he gained it back. Like I'm not really sure how that works, right? But
Well, he
I thought
never
that was kind of
he
weird.
always thought Spider-Man killed him. Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
Which
that was
we
like
saw
one
by the end
minor
of the movie
flaw.
we saw by the end of the movie that you can fully have the same glider blades by just picking that thing up and just shoving it in them. So that almost
That
happened.
was the most
So
epic. The
That
most
was
epic part of
dark.
the movie is when Toby stopped that. It also proved that Toby is the strongest Spider-Man because he was able to stop Tom at his full strength without even breaking a sweat, and he disarmed Andrew's web shooters within 1 second of seeing him. Right, so he's stronger than Andrew and Tom confirmed. Flex the goat.
When I love
Don't
that
even
shot too,
argue
where
with-
it's Toby and Tom making eye contact as he's holding the glider, and they don't say a single word, but there's so much acting going on. Like you can see it in Toby's face of him just being like, "We don't do this. Like this is wrong."
That was amazing.
It's so good.
That's powerful.
What was I was about to, I
Have you
forgot.
played or watched Spider-Man PS4, DA?
Oh yeah, played it many times.
I loved how in that video game, Octavius and Osborn they started Oscorp together, like O's Corp.
That's
kinda
yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. So the way they portrayed Doc Ock in this when he was evil was a lot more comic accurate with the things he was saying than in Spider-Man 2. Like this man was so like
An asshole.
an uppity asshole. Like
Yeah, yeah. Which is
Like,
awesome.
like,
I
just-
loved it.
it was great.
Yeah,
It was
and
great.
his like the way that he was like his stance like on the bridge, and the way that his arms like extended more and everything was also much more comic accurate as well. They really did a good job with him.
They sounded different too. The tentacles. They sounded like a roller coaster trying to like go up a track, which was pretty cool. I don't think it was like that in Spider-Man 2. It might have been. I don't actually watch that movie as much as. Might.
I did love how when the trailers came out and we all saw Ock like absorb the nano and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, he's gonna take over his suit." And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I feel like Peter will have control over his suit still. And then that was exactly what happened. It's kind of a convenient way to beat him, but I mean, it works, I guess.
That's like if there's like I have like two things that I would improve about the movie. The first one is probably a little bit like impossible. Is like I would have liked to have seen more epic battles, right? You know, with like the Goblin up and the Goblin on the bridge, right? The Doc Ock not really being defeated super well, and obviously like I think the end final battle, they were like defeating the villains so quickly. It felt like, especially the first time watching it, right? It would have been a lot cooler if they were like hunting them down one by one through the city. There's obviously time constraints, right? The
Yeah,
movie.
right.
It was already 2 hours 38 minutes, but I felt like they were defeating these villains that took entire movies to defeat super quickly. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Oh, there's three
it
of
is
them
what it is,
instead of.
Well, and they had a
one.
lot more experience fighting with him too, so that was where they kind of knew how.
and there was
Um,
3 of them, right? 3 Spider-Man.
Right. If I was gonna do anything differently with the movie, I think the one missed opportunity I think they had was there was no reveal of Toby in his Spider-Man costume. Like he showed
Right.
up in his regular clothes, and then he was like, "Oh, I have my costume," and then all of a sudden it was just him stretching his back, and he was wearing it. Like I would have had a shot where he like shows up in it, and it's like an epic shot, and his theme music kicks in. Like I was waiting for that epic moment where it's like we get to see him in costume again.
Also, I don't know how you
The
guys
theme
feel, but
music?
like
Yeah.
when he had his mask on and like the CGI with his suit in particular did not really look that good.
Well, what was weird, what I noticed, and specifically with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, he looked and felt really out of place. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just because his movies were so different, genre-wise and technology-wise. Because like Andrew Garfield carried over pretty well because his movies were still kind of modern superhero movies. But when you think of like Tobey Maguire's movies were so campy and so corny, so now having him in like a kind of serious movie, the tone was different, and I felt like he felt a little. It was weird having him there. Obviously, it worked out great and it was awesome, but that was where I did
Yeah.
feel like it was a little bit off. In that
I
regard.
felt the way the first time, but I think the second time around, I feel like they did a really good job. First time I did definitely catch up on that. Second time around, I feel like I could pick up on the little like mannerisms and nuances of Toby's performance that call back to like, his mannerisms and everything in the originals, and I feel like it worked just really well, right?
I love his when he
kinda-
first shows up and he's like, "Hey," and he gives his like cheesy little smile. Like it's such a
just
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, and
They
it's
were
super
in
politeness.
like so much of this movie. There's so much more of this movie than I thought they were gonna be. And like when that scene was happening where they first opened the portal and you see like in the alleyway you see like Andrew's Spider-Man, I was like, oh shit! Like I was actually surprised at that because it was actually so soon in the movie compared to what I thought was gonna happen. I thought they were gonna be in it for like the last 10 minutes.
No,
Really?
there's no way you bring them back and you don't have them for at
All-
least. I
all
thought
the
there would be
Twitter
more
leaks-
of the movie.
Twitter leak, I was watching the movie the first time. I was like, every single thing that the Twitter leak said was gonna happen happened, from Aunt May dying, from everything. That was kind of one unfortunate thing because I feel like all the Twitter leaks were gonna be half right, half false, but end up all being right. I was like, dog, for real? Like, I don't know.
I didn't see it.
Would have been
That-
better without all those leaks.
That was one thing that I wouldn't say I was disappointed with, but every surprise in the movie I saw coming either because of leaks or predictions. There wasn't anything that I like. Aunt May's death, people predicted. The Peters showing up, then how, like all of that. You know, Andrew Garfield saving MJ, like all of that was predicted. I wish, and I know it's not possible, but I wish we would have never known that the villains were going to be in the movie. I wish we would have never known that the Peters were going to be in the movie. They just marketed it as a Spider-Man movie and maybe like didn't even release a trailer. Imagine going to that movie for the first time and all of a sudden Dr. Octopus shows up and you're like, what the heck is going on? And then all of a sudden Green Goblin flies in. Like, how freaking crazy would that have been?
Yeah.
I wish I could do. I wish I could go back
should've-
and know nothing about it and see it for the first time.
Yeah. They should have cast like some like random villain, you know what I mean? Kind of like what they did with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where like everyone thought Rhino was gonna be a huge deal in it, and he was only in it for like 2 minutes. They should have done that with like some villain, you know, for this movie, right?
Yeah.
Like it could have been like Scorpion or something like that, and it could just be that Scorpion just, you know, it maybe he's in the last 2 minutes, kind of like Amazing Spider-Man 2, or he defeats him really quickly, and then the entire rest of the movie is like what we saw. That would have been legendary if they would have marketed it as like a Scorpion versus Spider-Man movie, or you know what I mean?
Well, so apparently what Sony originally wanted to do was to not tell anyone about the villains at all. And they wanted to market the movie as a Spider-Man versus Doctor Strange kind of like Civil War style movie.
Which would have been kind of impossible because I feel like people would be like, "There's no way." You know what I
Well,
mean?
people would have been disappointed. They would have been like, "What? You don't have a Spider-Man villain? It's the third movie, whatever." But the biggest issue with that is, I mean, that plan obviously never worked because like 2 years ago it leaked that Jamie Foxx was cast, that Alfred Molina
he
was
posted
coming
on
back.
Instagram.
Yeah, like they didn't keep that secret at all. I wish they would have been like they kept the secret with Toby Mcguire and Andrew Garfield somewhat well. Obviously there was still leaks and everybody knew they were going to show up. But if they had been like absolute secrecy with all of them, it would have just been such a crazy. I mean, people would have flipped out.
It's just impossible.
Yeah.
Though.
It's impossible, but how I honestly for me this has more encouraged me of like, and I've always thought about this for years, is like not watching trailers. And it's hard because I always want to.
Money wasn't an object. They could have just released the movie out of nowhere.
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
like no trailers.
No choice at all. Like if money wasn't a thing, you know what I mean? Like imagine like the next Spider movie just comes out, boom, like it's coming out this Friday. Like what? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
well, and
next,
think
like, movie
about
installment.
the secrecy that they had for Avengers Endgame. I mean, they kept the title a secret for so long. They released the trailers, and they hid like 60% of the movie out of the trailers. I wish they had done that a little more with this movie because like the trailers had the shot of MJ falling, that shouldn't have been in there. The trailers had the shot of Green Goblin showing up, which shouldn't have been there. Like that
Lizard
one
getting kicked in
epic
the
shot
face.
of Lizard getting kicked in the face was an obvious mistake. But that shot of Green Goblin flying up, the only shot with him in the full suit, like that should have never been in the trailers. They should have just had the pumpkin bomb and that was it. And then people would wait and see it in the theaters. I don't know. I feel like they would kind of
Because people are
revealed too
still-
much.
Yeah, people were still theorizing if it was going to be the Goblin from Amazing Spider-Man 2 with the pumpkin bomb, right? Even though obviously us, you know, OGs know the pumpkin bomb is distinctly different, right? And it was Norman's or Willem Dafoe's, right?
Right. And if
But-
it was the Amazing Spider-Man 2 Green Goblin, then oh my god.
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah.
We wouldn't be on this live stream right now.
Yeah, that would have been not good.
Someone would have got a nasty letter from me.
Exactly.
Did you guys also? I found it. The Lizard's voice was totally different.
Yeah, and he
I
looked the
heard that he
worst,
did.
didn't he?
I mean, Sandman and Lizard, they both weren't the actors weren't in the movie, right? They just repurposed old footage, right? But I did hear that they did have the original actors voice act, but like sounds kind of off with both characters.
Yeah, they kind of edited
Right.
their voices to be a little weird. Like the Lizard all of a sudden, like, Kurt Connor's always had a British accent in The Amazing Spider-Man, but, like, super
It was really
British
dramatic.
accent in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
holding a teacup, like, I can turn you into a lizard. Like, okay, whoa, dude, chill.
Also, I feel like out of everybody, he was the one which his design I feel like went down. Like he looks worse
Yeah.
in my opinion than Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
While everybody else looks better.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, the Lizard was also probably the least anticipated character there.
Yeah.
Maybe Sandman. I mean, he's from the Tobey Mcguire movies, though, so everyone wanted to see him, so. I thought
He actually had a
Electro was
compelling-
great.
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big upgrade for Electro in all senses, right?
No more
His
of the-
character motives, his appearance, everything, right? The one thing I would say, like, so I only had like 2 complaints in the movie. One was like what I already said about, like, you know, seeing some really fulfilling battles, right? The final battle and battles beforehand. And the second thing is that they didn't incorporate the OG theme songs, right? Toby's theme,
They
Andrew's
did a
theme,
little bit.
slightly, but
A
they should-
little
they
bit.
Totally, they missed the, like, you know, they had such an opportunity, right? With Electro, they had his theme for like 5 seconds, but they could have been switching between theme songs in the final battle between Electro's theme song, Toby's. Like, imagine if when Aunt May was, you know, getting killed, if they had like, the OG Goblin theme song, that would have been fire, right?
They
Maybe not
had
with the
all
actual
of
battle,
them
but-
very like when Dr. Octopus first shows up, you can hear his theme slightly for a moment.
Yeah.
And obviously when Doc Ock and Toby are face to face, his theme song kicks in for like that 30 seconds. Andrew Garfield's theme song kicks in when he's talking to Elektra at the end. But I also agree. That's why I wanted to see a shot where it's like Toby's in the costume and it kicks in with the classic like the classic
imagine,
theme that I love so much.
Yeah, you could have each of them like running, putting their mask on, going towards like the you know,
Yeah.
Statue of Liberty. Right. I mean, I get that this movie is its own movie and we can't just make it into a mixtape of like OG theme songs and all that kind of thing, right? But I would have just loved to have heard those theme songs just in all their glory, right? I mean, I'm probably gonna like download the movie and drop it into a video editor and put like the OG theme song just for my own personal enjoyment, right?
Oh, there's probably
In
gonna
the
be a
theaters, it
million
would
of
have been
those.
crazy.
Yeah.
YouTube
So
is gonna
many
be,
fan
like,
edits.
tons of them. It's gonna be so sick.
That was I felt the same way. I felt like that was a missed opportunity. They could have had all of the like Tobey Maguire, like everyone loves that classic Spider-Man theme song. I feel like they could have had that in it more prominently. Even Andrew Garfield's, I love his theme song as well. I feel like that could have been more prominently, but
I love the scene with Electro when his like soundtrack kicks in for like literally 2 seconds though. But it was like, oh, I don't know, like I love that part.
like
That's great.
yeah, they made it like a sound effect for lightning instead of like actually
Yeah,
the
it was
music,
pretty cool.
You know what I mean?
you're like, wait
Because
a
that
second,
song-
I know that,
That theme song, me and Dixon used to like play that all the time when it first came out. You remember that? And like his
Yeah.
that one song is like Spider-Man, he hates me.
Yeah.
Like that whole song, like so when I saw it, I was like, hey, like
Well, I mean, I just rewatched all the movies before No Way Home, and that scene with that song when he bursts out the electricity and the like dubstep freaking kicks in and the buildings are like falling down. That's such an epic scene.
So legendary, bro.
So that's
If they
what I'm
could have
saying. I
used
love
that in
that
the final
movie.
battle or in the.
I
in the
loved
first
Electro
one.
and Amazing Spider-Man 2, and everyone hates him.
No, I
Well,
loved him.
his
yeah.
character motives were trash. Like his whole character and everything was like, oh, I'm a nobody and I want to be somebody. It's like, Doc, for real.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
all the
he
other
has a
villains-
god complex. He wanted to be superior, you know.
All the other villains have like, you know, more like, you know, compelling motives, right? Like Mysterio had like really good compelling motives. Doc Ock, you know.
I
they
liked it.
all
It
had
was
deep
different, and
motives.
I liked
Not
Electro
just-
and Amazing Spider-Man 2. I
I
hated
don't know. I feel like
everything else.
Electro was just way too basic. It's like, oh, I want to be an important person. Spider-Man didn't remember me.
It's better
Like,
than
that's
his
just, like,
motives
kinda-
in the comic.
yeah.
In the comic, he's like, I got struck by lightning. I'm gonna rob banks now. they didn't have much source material to work with in terms of his character background.
Yeah, society evolves, right? You know, literature builds on
Yeah.
itself and improves over time. But
Ain't that the truth?
the
I
one
liked it.
thing
I
would
liked
say,
it a
like,
lot in this movie too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely played
I think
him very differently, personality-wise.
One complaint I have about the MCU as a whole is that they don't take very many risks, like in terms of like cinematography, soundtrack, that kind of thing, right? You look at other movies, you know, movies directed by Christopher Nolan, etc. They have really compelling shots, really like amazing, like, you know, artistic, visually, color grading, you know, very epic soundtracks that really hit. Oftentimes with the MCU, they kind of go the safe route. They don't really use very complex shots. They don't really color grade it too much. They don't try to be artistic. They just try to make it very clear of what's happening. You know what I mean? Like they didn't really, go hard with the soundtrack and all that.
I've heard that complaint a lot, and I agree to an extent, but I also disagree. Because, I mean, you think of, like, in this movie, for example, like, the shot in the rain after Aunt May dies
That was
when he's
amazing.
watching the screen, it's beautiful. I mean, the cinematography
That's like some
is
Blade
incredible.
Runner 2049 vibes right there. That was
Exactly. So that's where I feel like they do kind of do that a little bit. And with people have criticized the music in Marvel movies, they say it's very like unrecognizable. But I feel like they all have really, like, I mean, obviously the Avengers theme. Everyone knows the Avengers theme, right? Spider-Man has a theme that always kicks in, like in that shot where the three of them are swinging around and they're getting ready to fight them all. Like the Spider-Man theme kicks in. But
they're kind of the exceptions though, because
yeah.
like I mean, can you tell me, like, can you like hum like Ant-Man's theme or
Yes.
Thor's theme, or you can?
Yes. Ant-Man's theme. I got the Spider-Man one in my head right now. I got to think for a second. Oh, the Ant-Man one is bum 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 bum. I love it.
Interesting.
Point proven.
But I mean, you compare it to the Elfman OG. That's like that will inspire you to start a family and find a cure to cancer and
True.
transfer between dimensions.
Yeah, Ant-Man's probably the weakest one, but
That whole Spider-Man soundtrack, all three movies, he is unbeaten.
Absolutely.
yeah.
So-
Toby Mcguire sounds.
So I do want to talk about like the very end of the movie with the new suit.
Oh, heck yeah.
Got that in the
That's
thumbnail.
fire.
'cause
Especially
it's
when you consider
fire.
that like Tom took inspiration, like Thomas Peter took inspiration from the other two Spider-Men to make his new suit. That is especially like wow, and like the parallels with the Spider-Man PS4 opening scene is just incredible because, from my personal opinion, the Spider-Man PS4 is the best interpretation of Spider-Man. Period.
I agree.
Which obviously you can do with like a 5 or 6 hour long story, right? And like without the limitations of movies, right? But just seeing those parallels and knowing that the next trilogy will be a legitimate like 100% Spider-Man trilogy without Iron Boy Jr., Dark Industries, all that. Fire.
This is what I have been saying from the beginning, though. Because everyone, all the Tom haters, if you don't appreciate Tom Holland at his Homecoming and his Far From Home, you missed the boat. Because everyone was saying that. My brother, specifically, who's the big Iron Man fan, when Homecoming came out, he was like, this is so dumb. Like, why is he trying to be Iron Man? Like, this is so stupid. And I'm like, that's the freaking point. That's the entire point of the trilogy. That was his origin
The entire
story.
trilogy, yeah, it's an origin story. I mean, I put Homecoming from Home as the bottom of my tier list, just because I felt like it had too much of a Disney Channel immature vibes. You know what I mean? Like
That's the entire point, because what they did with it is they made him a kid. He's a kid, because that's who Spider-Man is. So the first movie is him like, I'm a naive kid, I want to be an Avenger. And that obviously doesn't work out. The second movie is him realizing what it means to actually be a hero. And so he's never Spider-Man until the very end of this movie. And I think that works perfectly.
And it actually it feels like he's Spider-Man at the end of the movie. Like, I don't know.
Because now he
like,
has with power comes responsibility. Like, he is living
And
in
he's
an
all
apartment
alone.
in New York. He's all by
He's all
himself.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely love that. I mean, I feel like a lot of people who are still like, oh, like Tom's Spider-Man is more comic accurate. I feel like that was incorrect because, I mean, in the comics, like how many issues of Spider-Man do we have now? Like 800 plus of Amazing Spider-Man,
880,
right?
yeah.
Around there.
Yeah.
How many of them are of him in high school? Like what, like the first like 30 or something like that?
Something like that.
So how can you
30.
say, how can you
We
say
haven't
that,
got there yet.
Yeah.
say
30-ish.
that, like the most comic accurate Spider-Man is just because he's in high school when like 95% of the comics take place with him outside of high school.
I think the
You know what I mean?
important difference and why I'm glad they did it the way they did is because obviously if you're bringing Spider-Man into the MCU, we all know the MCU exists for the long run, right? And so when they casted Tom Holland and they started him as Spider-Man, like in my eyes I was going, okay, this guy's going to be Spider-Man for the next 10, 15 years. So they start him young, start him in high school, so we get to see him as this teenager. I mean, we're reading the comics right now. He's an inexperienced teenager, doesn't know what the heck he's doing. You watch him in Homecoming trying to use Stark Tech, and he's like an absolute mess. You watch him in Far From Home trying, and he like makes a ton of mistakes, and he's totally screwing up left and right. And and throughout the whole trilogy, something feels off with him, and that's because there was no Uncle Ben, there was no guilt. Spider-Man,
Right.
at his core, has that guilt from Uncle Ben's death. and that did not exist for Tom Holland's character until Aunt May died in this movie. And I think that was the moment everyone realized this was his origin. Like, he is Spider-Man now.
Yeah, this movie was amazing from that perspective because it was like the most ultimate Spider-Man decisions, right? With him choosing to try to cure the villains, with him choosing to let everyone forget who he is, and him choosing not to reconnect with MJ. All those decisions were the most Spider-Man, decisions, right?
Selfless.
And now we can see Tom Holland's, selfless sacrifice. With great power comes great responsibility. This movie was like the essence of Spider-Man and his morality, his motives, his values.
So that's where,
I mean, absolutely loved.
I love the MCU trilogy. Obviously, No Way Home is the best, but I think the next trilogy of movies they make with Tom Holland is going to blow this trilogy out of the water because it's going to be a much more mature... I think they're going to leave it's going to be a new director. They're going to leave the kiddish, like you said, Disney style. Like, yeah, these movies were a little bit more like, oh, haha, I'm a kid, like kind of goofy and lighthearted. Now they can go in a more darker direction. Like, they can do the symbiote. They can do, Tombstone or Kingpin, or there's rumors that they're going to have the Punisher, which would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, I saw your tweet. Oh,
dude,
God,
that
awesome.
would be so good. Imagine a movie. John Bernthal, Punisher, Charlie Cox, Daredevil, Kingpin, Spider-Man.
That's
Ana de Armas, Black Cat. Let's go.
Interesting casting, but I'm here for it.
We don't look at those type of things.
Yeah, we don't look at those type of things.
Hey, Ana de Armas in any capacity, I'm going to the movie.
I agree with that. So here's a good question now that we're talking about it. If you guys, and we'll go around and everyone, Kevin Feige hires you. He says, you're in charge of the next Spider-Man trilogy. What movies are you making?
Kraven's Last Hunt for sure. Absolutely. That'd be lit. Really dark movie. You can have him in like the black costume for part of that. I mean, the iconic cover, right, of him digging himself out of the grave. Kraven's Last Hunt for sure. I mean, the thing is, like, we've already seen the best villains of Spider-Man already in this past movie alone, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what makes it this hard. Yeah.
I mean, Venom would be really cool, but if we're having do that,
See, that's what I was gonna say. So, there's obviously a Venom symbiote now in the MCU with the after credit scene.
Yeah.
So I would do that. I'd have an MCU Venom, but really what I would make it lead to is an actual good Carnage, because I know you haven't seen Venom 2, but that was some shit.
That's
and
why.
Then
that's why I haven't seen it.
Spoilers for Venom 2 as well, in case anybody hasn't seen that and doesn't want to get spoiled. The guy gets his head bit off at the end of the movie. He's Cletus Cassidy's dead in that universe, and the symbiote supposedly got eaten. So I would have a MCU Cletus Cassidy that, like the Kraven's Last Hunt thing, would be a little bit more darker and just more gritty and like true to the comics and just a badass kind of Venom, Carnage, and Spider-Man movie.
Can we all agree that we are not doing Flash Thompson Venom with that Flash Thompson?
Oh no,
Please no.
Definitely no.
Hell no.
Okay, so here's my trilogy. If I'm making the next Spider-Man trilogy, okay? First movie, we have the Venom symbiote in the MCU now. Have that show up and have Spider-Man get the black costume. Don't go straight to Venom. Have him get the black costume.
Right, yeah.
Introduce Black Cat as a love interest. And have the plot of that movie be John Bernthal, Punisher, and a gang war. So initially, Punisher's kind of an antagonist.
How about the villain from Spider-Man PS4 as like the gang?
You could do Mr. Negative. You could do Kingpin. You could do Tombstone. You could do Hammerhead. You could do all of them and have all of them kind of warring. But I want like street level crime, kind of like the Daredevil series, and he's 100%. In the black costume, teaming up with Black Cat. Originally,
you could do Hobgoblin with that too.
You could do Hobgoblin. Originally,
imagine he fights Hobgoblin, and then the Hobgoblin takes off his mask, and it's Ned. That'd be like incredible.
They could do that.
You know what I mean?
But have Punisher start as an antagonist, and then have him ultimately team up with the Punisher as the first movie. Second movie, continuing with the black costume, now is when he starts to realize that it's bad. He ditches the black costume, and it becomes and goes and finds Eddie Brock, and then you have Venom. Black Cat still being in that movie, and you have Venom as the main villain for that movie. And then for the finale of that trilogy, that's when you do Maximum Carnage.
And then you have the three of them in the same movie. Like that'd be sick.
Because you could have Spider-Man, Black Cat. I know Steve Rogers is gone, but you could have Falcon Cap because Captain America was in Maximum Carnage. Instead of Iron Fist, you could do Shang-Chi. So you could bring in all those Marvel heroes and have them team up against Carnage and Shriek and Doppelganger and all of those characters.
You could bring in the fucking Human Torch because the Fantastic Four is going to be there. I don't know if he was a Maximum Carnage, but he'd be a perfect fit for something like that.
You could write him in.
With their friendship, you can work on that.
Mhm.
I don't think he was a Maximum Carnage.
I really
that's
hope
my
Darker,
in a-
college age.
Yes, I hope that the next movie, you see him mourning a lot. You see him really sad to have missing his friend. You see him like really suffer and go through things like emotionally, and the black suit can play into that dynamic of him really being mad about his life, not having anyone around, that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
One thing I'm really interested in moving forward is Tom Holland's Spider-Man knows about Norman Osborn, knows about Otto Octavius, knows about Gwen Stacy, knows about all these people that is he gonna meet the MCU versions and be like, I don't want.
It'd be hard to have all of them in it, but
I don't want any part to do with this.
Well,
have you seen like the TikToks? Like the TikToks, like Peter Parker, his roommate ends up being Harry Osborn, his classmate ends up being Gwen Stacy, and his professor's Kirk Connors, and he has to write a paper on Otto Octavius.
And he's like, wait a second.
Because there's no way he.
leaves.
I mean, they could just not touch it, right? They could just be like, I'm not doing anything with that. But
I don't think they're gonna do a Gwen Stacy in the MCU. I feel like
Betty Brant was in this movie. Did you see that?
Well, she was in all the movies.
Yeah.
I thought that
She was.
Betty Brant was in the first
her?
two. Yeah, this was just
Yeah,
her
okay, that was
having
her.
graduated and gotten a job as a reporter.
Isn't Gwen Stacy in the first one too? Like in the background, like the fucking thing on her head and the blonde
I
hair.
don't think so.
No,
I'm
she's
pretty
not.
sure, dude.
But
I'm pretty sure you gotta look back.
I don't think they'll
watch
do her
Homecoming
as a
on
love
Sunday.
interest. I think the natural, obvious choice for love interest for the next trilogy is Black Cat. I mean, I feel like that's a really obvious one. And you couldn't do that in these movies because he was a kid and Black Cat is inherently sexy. But now that he's grown and he's graduated high school and he's an adult, they can have Black Cat.
Do you think that MJ will come back? Like, seeing that the trilogy ends with them together, it's like I think they're kind of setting it up right because in the last scene, she obviously has a necklace, right? When she's looking at Peter, you can tell that, and like she's kind of thinking like either A, she's thinking he's really a good-looking guy, I want to get to know him, or B, you look really familiar, or there's just something, right? I could see it being a case where like he has all these different love interests, but in the last movie, like boom, like Ned and MJ remember everything, right? Like the spell like wears off on them, and that'd be a really satisfying way for the entire saga to end, right? Is that the ending is happily ever after, but after all that, I would like that.
This might just be wishful thinking on my part because I don't really like Zendaya as MJ.
No, you want her for yourself. No, I'm kidding.
I think this is the last time we're ever gonna see MJ or Ned.
I don't know. I mean,
don't
I
think
really
they're coming
like.
back. They're going off to MIT. They don't remember him, and he was obviously like, "Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Be happy." I think that they're just gonna walk off into the sunset, and I don't think they're coming back.
Sorry,
That's
the whole
probably
time I was
the
looking
most-
up my theory, and there's a whole video on it. It's got like 1 million views.
What
Which
theory?
theory?
She's in the background. Gwen
Oh,
Stacy,
yeah.
supposedly.
It was one of those situations where Marvel could have taken and run with that, but they chose not to. But I don't know. When I watched the ending of No Way Home and Peter and MJ together, it's just like, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah,
It could be cool if they put the necklace and thing come into play. One thing a theory that I am seeing is that how happy he says that he knows Aunt May through Spider-Man, right? The theory is that MJ knows that the necklace came from Spider-Man, but she doesn't know who Spider-Man is. So there's a theory that MJ is obsessed with Spider-Man. She's in love with Spider-Man, and there's like a thing where it's like, Peter is doing his thing, and he knows that MJ is obsessed with him, but he can't do anything about it, right? That's like a pretty interesting dynamic. I think it would distract from the story, and it would be a little bit annoying. But I personally want to see the ending being Peter and MJ together.
That is one thing that I mean, we'll just have to wait and see because obviously everyone forgot Peter Parker. They didn't forget Spider-Man. So, like, does Ned still remember that he helped Spider-Man? Does MJ still remember? Like, did they just, like, wake up on the Statue of Liberty Island?
I think so.
Like,
I think so.
so they
That's
must know
one
that
weird
they have
thing.
some connection to Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my thing. Like, how quick are they gonna? How quick is Happy gonna all of a sudden know that Peter's Spider-Man because Peter says, I gotta tell him or something like that? Like, how long until all this is kind of reverted and everybody knows again?
I don't
Other
think
than
they'll be
obviously
reverted.
everybody. Not reverted
Like-
in terms of like the people that knew before now know again.
I can only see MJ finding out again. I don't think anyone else will know.
I don't
Happy's
think.
done.
This is obviously the movie adaptation of One More Day, but I really think they did this to soft reboot Spider-Man in the MCU. I think it's their way of going, okay, MJ and Ned are gone, Aunt May's dead, Happy Hogan's gone, now it's just going back to Tom Holland as a more grown Peter Parker living in his apartment and obviously being the character that we all want to see on the screen. So I think that all of those side characters from this first trilogy are going to be gone. I think they're just from that trilogy, and now they're going to start new with a whole new cast of characters. That's why I think they're going to bring in Black Cat. They're going to bring in, JJ will probably still be there. But, like, I think this is their way of kind of wiping the slate clean and going, okay, we did our trilogy that was his origin story. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Now we're going to do a new trilogy with a new set of characters that everyone can like because it'll be a more accurate depiction of Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
Would be my
there's
guess.
no denying it.
Because I honestly, like, as Ned is funny and MJ's cool. Like, I liked MJ a lot more in this movie than I did in the first two movies. I did not like her at all in the first two movies. But it's like Ned Leeds was never Peter Parker's best friend, and he's obviously a ripoff of Genki from Miles Morales. So, like, I kind of want him to go.
They butchered the supporting cast, honestly.
They ripped it straight out of Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Which immediately made it impossible to have Miles Morales in the MCU because now they'll have to change his character. So I want those characters to go and be in the past, and now he can have his, maybe he'll meet Harry Osborn in college, and he'll have they'll do that.
Yeah.
So I think that now we'll be able to have a more proper Peter Parker.
I guess I mean,
Absolutely.
I would love if they would do that, but I don't know. Just in the first two movies, it just seems like it was something they would do, just revert everything that already happened, because like that's just something that some people, like some studios, would do. Like it's more of a gimmick than anything.
I trust Kevin Feige. I think it was
you
obviously...
You can see where I'm coming from.
Yes.
That's some shit that would happen.
It is, but it's also very obvious that they did this for, like, that ending scene was very much them purposefully going, like, look at what Spider-Man's going to be now. Like, he moved into an apartment. The guy was like, oh, rent's due on the 1st of the month. Like, oh, he's worrying about rent, and he's... Like, I think they were obviously like, all right, let's wipe the slate clean. Let's get rid of, he's not Iron Man Jr. He's not, he doesn't have all these friends and Aunt May and all these people who know. Like, he's back to now he understands the importance of a secret identity. So now he's not going to tell a bunch of people, and it's going to be a lot more of him balancing, like, I'm Peter Parker, but I'm secretly Spider-Man, and he sewed his costume and all of that.
So how do you guys feel about, like, I guess, so since these three movies are pretty much one long Amazing Fantasy 15 and just it being his, like, origin, with Aunt May saying with great power comes great responsibility, does he just not care about Uncle Ben? Is Uncle Ben just like nothing?
I don't think so.
Uncle Ben might not exist.
He exists because
he did, though.
Aunt May, the luggage of Peter that he brings on his trip is from Uncle Ben, right?
It might not. He might not have had as tragic of a death.
Yeah, I think that with great power comes great responsibility, it's just a family motto, right? I think Aunt May was gonna say, right? I think that's like something that probably Ben just would say. You know what I mean? That's what I hope, at least, right? And I hope that comes from Ben. I hope that Ben did die in a tragic way. I mean, they're gonna go over that in the upcoming Disney Plus show, right?
As I say, I guess we'll find out in the animated
but
show.
I really do hope that they are able to keep it true to this.
I didn't think about that, it being more of something she reiterated instead of came up with herself, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying, right?
That's what I definitely think, and I feel like something that really was impactful for me when I watched the death of Aunt May was the realization that Spider-Man is who he is, Peter is who he is because of Ben and Aunt May. You know what I mean? And that goes through for all iterations of Spider-Man, right? Because of like that strong family unit and the morals that they, were based upon. I found that to be really impactful when I watched that death. And she was saying how she works at Feast and she helps people, and she tried to have Peter, fix the villains and whatnot. So
yeah, and when that was that moment with all of the Spider-Men where they both were like, our Uncle Ben said that before they died, and Toby was like, maybe she didn't die for nothing.
That's what makes me think
like that. Across all of the multiverse, the one constant of what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man is the tragic death of his parental figure and the great power, great responsibility. So I think that was...
I interpreted that differently. I interpreted them saying she didn't die for nothing, not because with great power comes great responsibility. I thought they said she didn't die for nothing because we're going to be able to fix these villains and save them. That's what I thought they meant when they said the death.
Well, because he said it immediately after, because he was like, I can still hear her voice. She said, with great power. And then Toby's eyes kind of light up and he goes, with great responsibility. And he's like, how did you know that? And he goes, and they both are like, Uncle Ben said that right before he died. And then immediately after, Toby goes, maybe she didn't die for nothing. And what he's saying is like, that Uncle Ben dying is what made us become who we are. Like, maybe this is what is making you become. Like, I feel like that was his way of saying, like, she didn't die for nothing because that is what's going to make you become the hero that you can be, I guess, is the way that I would put it. Because that's obviously, I mean, that's how Spider-Man has always been. That's why I loved it so much. Obviously, it changed Aunt May instead of Uncle Ben, but, like, Uncle Ben's death and with great power and great responsibility has always been the catalyst that created Spider-Man.
Another thing is, I thought they were going to show at the end both their tombstones, like Uncle Ben and
I thought it would pan over and show Uncle Ben.
I thought that would have been
was
a
a
nice
missed opportunity.
I thought it would too, yeah.
I thought a missed opportunity, which I would have absolutely loved, is if when Aunt May was dying, if she would have said, like, Ben would be proud of you, you know, kind of like what they said in Spider-Man PS4. I thought the Spider-Man PS4 Aunt May death was like an incredible scene, amazing, perfection, had me in tears. I think if they would have said something to the effect of like, I'm proud of you, Ben's proud of you, you know, for him being Spider-Man, what he's done, people he saved.
The thing is, I don't
That
think
would
she
be
didn't know she was dying when she was dying, which is also this is so sad because I don't think she knew she was dying.
I thought she didn't realize, and that's why she was like, "It's okay, Peter." Like, I think that she's just, you know.
She was like, "What happened? What happened?" And he's like,
She's
"Nothing."
like, I just
fine."
need to catch my breath. And he's like,
And then she dies.
I thought she was saying that to make Tom not.
maybe.
So apprehensive.
No, I think
And she
just
seemed a
didn't know
little
she was dying.
dazed, yeah. I loved how they did that, though, because obviously everyone was predicting her death there by Green Goblin, so they kind of faked us out, because she got up and she was okay, and I was like, oh, I guess she's not dying. And then all of a sudden she freaking dies. I was like, they actually got me with that one. I didn't see it coming.
That scene was dark.
I found
though,
it kind of
because-
unbelievable that Green Goblin threw a bomb right next to her, and she was like not affected at all visually or aesthetically. I was like, what?
Well, she got
You would
hit
think
by
a
a
bomb
glider
would,
pretty hard.
Yeah,
another thing.
yeah.
He's a menace, bro. He really just killed her, and he just said, "All right, you did it."
He is so,
like when he was like,
you-
"You pretty much killed her." I was like,
I may have dealt the
That's
last
crazy.
blow, but he was there because of you. That was awesome.
Hot
bro.
take. Now, James, don't come at me for saying this. Discounting nostalgia, I think this movie was the best depiction of the Green Goblin.
No, I agree.
Like, Green Goblin in Spider-Man 1, obviously it's iconic, but, like, it's a little whack. But, like, in this movie, like, he's properly crazy. Like, he's freaking insane.
No, he's like a psychopath.
I think that
And
like,
he's
it's
a
just, like,
menace. Like,
Yeah.
he's a
I agree with
menace.
that.
Yeah, it's definitely the most comic accurate and most like you think about the Green Goblin. Like this, that's what it was.
Scary. Like, that's the scene where his spider sense goes off, he webs his arm, and then he's like, Norman Osborn's on sabbatical, honey. Like, oh, it just gives you chills. You're
That
like,
was
oh my
amazing.
gosh, this man is evil. Like,
That was so reminiscent of like the '90s TV show, like when he
yes.
would like, refer to Norman as another character, like another person. That was incredible.
When
Yeah.
he-
They hit me with some
he's-
nostalgia with a couple lines too. Like they said, "Can the Spider-Man come out to play?" I was like, "That's the line."
That's
Yes.
so sick.
Yeah, like he's such a like perfect, like he's properly Spider-Man's nemesis in this movie. I mean, I feel like it's the best depiction of just like the arch enemy to Spider-Man. I mean, he's so freaking good in this movie.
Yeah.
I just feel like his. I'm not saying this because I love the actor and the whole character, but I just feel like his story is still unfinished because my man just was an absolute psychopath the entire movie, got stuck with some serum, and then just was like, "What did I do? Okay, I guess I'll go home now." I was like, "Can you give me a little bit more at the
He's
end?" Like,
sure,
I
He
was
was,
like,
like,
yeah.
he was sitting there, like, he was just sitting there, like.
he was just sitting there, just like reflecting on what he didn't know what happened. I was like, "Can we get a little bit more?"
My thing
For me-
a couple of plot holes, which I guess we will never get answers to. But one, their whole plan was to keep them from dying by curing them. Dr. Octopus didn't die because he was crazy. He died because he sacrificed himself to save the day. So when he goes back to his universe, now he's no longer crazy. The machine is still exploding. So he would probably still
maybe
die.
he'll have the arc reactor, right? He'll somehow have the arc reactor stabilize the freaking
Maybe.
machine.
The other problem, they were from different points in the timeline. So the Peter Parkers that came were after all those villains had died. When those villains go back and don't die, Wouldn't that
would never have
change
become
their
Doc Ock without-
past?
Yeah, Doc Ock would never have become Doc Ock if Norman had died because Harry was, he was utilizing the funds of Oscorp very unwisely, right? And Doc Ock would never happen, right? So, I know the iteration, like what does happen is that there are splinter, timelines, right?
Yeah, I guess.
That's how it works, right? So there'll be so in Toby's universe, there'll be 4 different ones,
Yeah.
I think, right?
Like
There'll be
different-
the one Toby goes back to, and the one the other 3 villains go back to, right?
Well, have you
That's what I'm
have
pretty
you
sure
watched
happens.
Loki?
I haven't watched it, but I know how it works. I watched a video that
You gotta
used
watch
that concept
Loki.
from Loki. I
Yeah.
know. There's a lot of shows I need to watch, bro.
Well,
I was,
they're all variants basically, so I feel like they'll all kind of go back to their different variant universes. But
Yeah. So
watch Loki though.
yeah,
it's good.
That's how it'll go down. But one thing I was wondering, dude, is dude, I wonder what Toby's job is. I wonder what Peter Parker when he graduated college, what his job is. I wonder how much time has passed in Andrew's universe. I feel like his time passing was a lot shorter than it would be from.
I think probably play that off and they didn't. I don't think they touched up Toby's face at all with CGI or anything like that. So it's obviously a lot of time has passed for him because he's
And Doc Ock even
literally
said, he was like, "You're all grown up."
And then Andrew doesn't. Not as much time has passed between those movies or those franchises. So, I mean, it makes sense to say less time passed in Andrew's world.
I love and obviously I wish we would have got some more specifics on what is Peter married to Mary Jane? Do they have a family? Whatever. But when Doc Ock asks him how he is, and he's like, "I'm trying to do better," I'm just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
my Toby." I'm just picturing him going back home to Mary Jane and their daughter or something. They should do
"Let
a
me tell you
Spider-Girl
something."
movie. Oh my gosh.
That'd be fire.
They should do a Spider-Girl movie with Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire being old and the parents.
Oh snap, dude.
That would be really good.
Really nice, and him training her for one movie or something. and she can do
Yeah. Do the Mayday Parker Spider-Girl. Because that was always in an alternate universe in the comics, so they could easily do that in the Sam Raimi verse.
So, what do you think? Who's the next villain?
It's gonna
I think
be
it's Kraven.
one of those. I mean, yeah, Kraven. You should do Kraven in there
He's
somewhere.
already cast.
Obviously, they're gonna do things with the symbiote. I mean, that's what the after credits was teasing. I think they should do some ground level, street level, gang war type stuff.
I do have a question for both of you. Get your thoughts on it. So at the end when they're coming through and you can't stop and you see the cracks, in the sky and you see all the villains and the characters. My question, and I asked my friends because I was thinking myself. So you saw I saw Kraven and I saw Scorpion's tail.
I saw
Right.
Rhino too.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be. They saw Black Cat and all these crazy people. So is that a Scorpion and a Kraven and a Black Cat from Toby and Andrew's universe, or is that just from
It's from,
some
like,
universe?
Any universe.
Any universe.
Yeah, it could be honestly, and we really need to wait for the movie to come out for people to watch at home, because then people can go in and analyze it. But it could even be comic book characters, because they could
Or
easily just
90s
be
animated
it's from
series.
any universe, so it's from the comic book
Yeah.
universe. I'm sure there's so many Easter eggs. Every single silhouette in there is probably a character from the 90s series, from the 60s animated series, from the video game. There's probably Spider-Man PS4 characters in there. There's probably comic book characters in there. But I definitely saw Rhino. I saw Kraven with his staff. I didn't see Black Cat. But
I would have known.
He would have whipped out his phone and just took a picture.
he knows what Black Cat looks like. I mean,
Let's not. Yeah. No denying that at all.
but yeah, there's probably so many Easter eggs in there.
I really want them to do Scorpion because I love the actor that they have for Matt Gargan, right? And I love the Scorpion.
They could do his origin legitimately
But,
with
I
J.
mean-
Jonah
Yeah,
Jameson.
yeah, that'd be pretty nice.
I feel like he's alright, but I don't think it'd be a very compelling movie, to base the entire movie.
No,
on.
I don't think he'd be he wouldn't. There wouldn't be a movie based around it, but I want them to do that character in some regard.
What I would like to see, and this is something that they have to do right, because in the past when they've tried to do a lot of supervillains, obviously Spider-Man 3, they got criticism for that. Amazing Spider-Man 2, they got criticism for that. But the way I've always kind of felt about it is in the comic books, Spider-Man will just like stop supervillains robbing a bank in like one page, and then he'll go on with the rest of his story. So I would love to see supervillains show up more casually, because in the MCU, obviously, there's powered people everywhere. So like literally, his next movie could be like a montage of him swinging around the city, and it's like, oh, there's the Scorpion robbing a bank. Let me beat him up for a fight scene, and then boom, he's off to jail, and then on with the story. And like things like that, or they could have other like B-list, C-list villains kind of show up, just as like they're just rampaging around New York, and he's just stopping them, doing his thing.
Have one full Alpha. Remember that? They Amazing Spider-Man 700 was like a freaking issue about Alpha, and we're like, what the heck is going on? Remember that? Or was it 700 or was it?
It was right before 700. It was like 692, 693.
And we were all like, what the heck is this?
Alpha's crap, dude.
So, think they're gonna do a Sinister Six with Tom?
If
They should not do a Sinister Six.
They
I
should
don't think
do.
they should do it.
The next trilogy, like we were talking about, they have a lot of stuff to do in there. The symbiotes, the Black Cat, Venom, Carnage, all of that stuff. Do a third trilogy. In that trilogy, have him be an adult. Have him settle down. Maybe he gets married to MJ. Maybe they have a Mary Jane. Maybe they have whatever.
That'd be an epic ending. Epic ending would be the wedding between MJ and Peter.
Introduce Miles Morales. Have him start training him as the next generation of Spider-Man. And the finale of that trilogy should be a Sinister Six with all of his, from the whole 9 movies. I think, and I stand by this, I thought he was going to show up in this movie, but he didn't. Mysterio is alive.
Also, Vulture's still in prison.
Vulture's still in prison. Scorpion's still out there.
And Morbius somehow.
No, Vulture somehow made it into the Sonyverse, dude. It was like a reverse spell.
Could be a variant of him, maybe. I don't know. But Mysterio is still alive.
Right.
He has to be.
Maybe.
Because literally,
Taylor
he
Swift
just
must have killed her.
all of a sudden freaking died.
Let's kill him.
And then he pulls off this plant. Like, why would he do that? And ultimately, and then when he's dead, Peter puts on the glasses and he goes, "Is this real?" And she goes, "No illusions detected." That doesn't mean he's not faking his death. That just means there's no illusions.
Right.
Mysterio's not dead. I thought he was going to show up in this movie because they had 5 villains, so I thought he would show up as the 6th, and then it would be the Sinister
I thought the
Six.
sixth was going to be Kraven, and Kraven was going to give like Stark tech to, or tech to the villain. That's what I thought it was going to be, but
That'd be cool if they,
Mysterio could have done that too. I thought they.
That'd be cool if
would've
they
brought
did it a third trilogy and they brought back Mysterio like almost a decade later in like a third trilogy. That'd be pretty sick.
Bring back Mysterio, and then they could bring back whatever other characters they introduce, and then do
But, I
a
mean-
Sinister Six.
I feel like the Sinister Six, like, it's defined by those OG villains. You know what I mean? Electro and Sandman and everything. It'd make a different Sinister Six, and I just think that they should just not do it again. I mean, we've already had so many movies with so many different supervillains. We should just have really compelling, good narrative stories that just focus on one villain or one gang war. That's what I think is the way to go, right?
For the next trilogy, for sure. But you gotta have the Sinister Six in a movie at some point. Like, it's the Sinister Six. And I know that this movie was pretty close. I mean, it was the Sinister Five, but they weren't really teaming up. They were just kind of there. But I want to see them actually team up, like Dr. Octopus recruits them or whatever. I don't know. I mean, they would have to introduce a lot of the MCU versions of those characters, so that's
Dude,
why I don't think
imagine,
they can do it anytime soon.
A movie interpretation of Ends of the Earth, bro.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. That's what I would love to see for the MCU
Yeah.
Sinister Six. But they couldn't do
Imagine
that
they-
until
they
like
do,
6 movies out, because they would have to introduce Dr. Octopus and Green Goblin, or not Green Goblin, Mysterio's there, Sandman, all of those.
Definitely, 'cause last time, are there any like comic book storylines that you would like to see just interpreted straight off the page type of thing?
Dying Wish.
Dying Wish.
This
It's
is
really Spider-Man.
definitely a hot take. I think it would be really cool. Imagine if you had here's a movie. Let's say this is the third Spider-Man trilogy. They did the college age trilogy. They did the symbiote. They did Black Cat, like the '80s era of comics, right? For the third trilogy, you do Ends of the Earth as the Sinister Six movie. So it's Dr. Octopus. It's all these other characters. Ends of the Earth. That movie ends with him. So it's Ends of the Earth and Dying Wish in one movie. So it starts with kind of the Ends of the Earth storyline. He's fighting the Sinister Six. Ultimately, it comes down to him and Dr. Octopus, and then he switches the consciousness, and it's Peter trying to fight back as Dr. Octopus, and that movie ends with him dying in Dr. Octopus's body, just like Amazing Spider-Man 700. Then you go into, like, maybe there's an Avengers movie between those, and you have him appear in that, and he's, like, kind of off, and you see that he's weird. And then you go into the second Spider-Man movie, and it's Superior Spider-Man. It's Otto Octavius in his body, and that movie ultimately ends with Peter coming back. Maybe it's Green Goblin. Maybe they do Goblin. What was it? Goblin Nation. Goblin War.
Yeah.
Maybe they do that for that movie, and then he comes back, and they could introduce Anna Maria Marconi, and they could do like, I think at the time we all criticized it and we all hated it, but looking back on it, Superior Spider-Man was a pretty cool idea.
For like the last payoff, the ending was lit. You know what I mean? With like the one panel of Peter regaining all of his memories. That's like my favorite panel in a freaking Spider-Man comic.
The ending was lit.
Shards
It really celebrated the legacy of Spider-Man. I personally love Dying Wish. 698, 699, 700, like Peter Parker's death is so good. I mean, it's like an emotional and just sad and all this stuff. So I would love to see them do that. I don't know if they would because it was so
be so complicated for the average, viewer.
Yeah,
right?
and it was really controversial. Like not a lot of people liked the comic, but I think it would be really cool personally.
Yeah.
More likely though, I think they'll do a proper Spider-Verse live-action movie. I think they'll bring Toby back, they'll bring Andrew back, and they'll bring like everyone back, and they'll be there for the whole movie, and it'll actually be based on the Spider-Verse comic, and they could bring in Miles Morales. They could do like all these
Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, Spider-Gwen, and bring back Emma Stone as Spider-Gwen. Like, I think that'll probably happen now that No Way Home was such a success.
I think that they already have like the Spider-Verse like trilogy animated thing. Like I find it unlikely they'll do that, and I think it's also unlikely that there'll be more than 3 movies with Tom Holland returning. I think that we're getting the next trilogy and that's it. I think Miles Morales took the mantle, and
That's too soon.
that's what I think. I mean, we can say that, but I think that even Tom Holland even says he wants to focus on a family and stuff.
Yeah, screw that. Make more Spider-Man movies.
I mean, it's gonna. How long is 3 movies gonna take? It's gonna be like
6
half a
years,
decade, no?
6 years,
Yeah.
7 years.
So we'll see what happens in 6 years, man.
I just think, like,
Yeah.
I
But
want
look-
them to do Miles Morales, but you can't have Miles Morales without a solid legacy of Peter Parker for him to follow up on. And I think 6 movies is not enough. Like, they should do 3 trilogies and then move on to Miles Morales, in my opinion. You could have him
That's what
appear
we would all
alongside
want,
him.
but that's what we would all want. But I think it's unlikely, like logistically, that would happen. But if we're thinking about 3 storylines they can enter into movies that'll most actually that actually probably happen, right? I think that Spider Island, Dying Wish, Spider-Verse, those are all a little bit far-fetched, right?
Yeah.
Let's Hunt. Are there any other storylines? Maximum Carnage is a possibility, even though they already have 2 Venom movies. Any other storylines you guys think of that could be interpreted?
I'm trying to think of the comics. I know one. They can't do it for this universe, and I know James would love this, but Sins Past.
I knew you were gonna say that. Sins Past didn't even happen. bro.
Sins Past did happen.
It's retcon.
They
It was
retconned the
illusion.
context of it. It still happened.
No, but it didn't though.
It
I don't think
still
so.
happened.
I think that wasn't it just like them. They were just saying that, but it actually didn't happen. Like that people, those clones and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it was
the events of Sins Past still happened. Peter Parker still experienced that psychological trauma.
Right.
They
but
just
the
retconned
awful
that Norman Osborn never
storyline-
actually slept with Gwen Stacy. But
Yeah,
I
'cause whoever-
think
whoever-
that story is good because they took some chances with it. They went to some controversial places with it. I like Sins Past, and I
Someone
will
woke
die
up
on
and
this
said-
rock.
Well, someone woke up and said, "I'm gonna be real weird to a lot of people," and that's what Sins Past is.
I will
So
die on that rock.
There's zero chance that story is being interpreted.
I know.
Like,
They-
what are some, like, realistically, what could be
I
interpreted?
mean, honestly, realistically, I know everyone says that Kraven's Last Tongue can happen, but I'm thinking about it, it's like, like I really like Hobgoblin. I like his whole underground thing. But that's not really a storyline. It's more of a character.
A Goblin War would be sick, honestly. If there was like multiple, like if there's a Green Hobgoblin. Wait, isn't there like a Red Goblin now, right, in the comics?
There
was.
was Red Goblin, which was Norman Osborn with the Carnage symbiote, and now they're introducing a new one
Goblin
called
Queen or whatever?
Queen Goblin, Goblin Queen,
Goblin?
which is it's the Spider Queen from Spider Island. I assume with Goblin serum. I don't know. She hasn't appeared yet, but looks okay. But yeah, like some kind of Goblin War would be cool. I think I would love to see Kingpin. I mean, Kingpin just appeared in Hawkeye. and I'm not gonna spoil what happened at the ending of Hawkeye, but Kingpin might not be appearing in the MCU in the future, so I don't know, but
Yeah, I think that the Hobgoblin saga and Kraven's Last Hunt would be like just baller.
Like, do you know the
Saga.
Hobgoblin Lives like series, where it like reveals all of the Hobgoblin?
Yes,
like, that'd
that's
be
the
cool to
comic where he
see.
has the
Well,
mask.
Yeah.
It's 250, 251.
No, there's literally. I'm pretty sure there's literally like a separate series.
Oh,
called
yeah.
Hobgoblin Lives
I think I have
that
that.
that explains literally the entire
Yeah.
origin of Hobgoblin, from the fake outs to the couple of different people to who it actually is, and the whole thing. Like, that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, like a
But
whole
again,
conspiracy
how many
kind
times?
of whodunit type.
This is what you're gonna hear if you go talk to your local person down the road. They're gonna say to you, "How many times are they gonna do a goblin on the screen?" You know how many times I've heard that? How many? We're never gonna see Green Goblin again because they've done him so many times.
Yeah, we
But then
had
they
we
keep
had
bringing
William Dafoe, we had freaking Harry Osborn, we had the other
Twice.
Harry Osborn.
We
in
don't
the same
count
Fantastic
Mr.
universe.
Surfer,
they do, though.
flying surfboard Harry Osborn, Green
But
Goblin.
they do, and I like that Green Goblin. And anybody who
That's
says
still
they
the second
don't like that
best
Green
one.
Goblin, exactly.
It's New Goblin, isn't that what they
You
call
knew
him?
this was coming, Pete. When he says you knew this was coming, Pete, you don't get chills.
When he
That was
bonks his
fire,
head
dude.
on the pipe and does a couple flips.
That was afterwards.
It's funny.
The
Okay?
It's
entire
funny.
trilogy is based around Peter and Harry. Let's be
I
real,
know,
'cause
I know. I
Harry, in a
appreciate
sense,
Spider-Man
created
3.
Doc Ock,
Spider-Man 3 gets some hate, but I appreciate it. But
Harry created Doc Ock financially, right?
yeah,
You knew this was
True.
coming, Pete.
True.
Went hard, and it didn't need to.
Dude, imagine, when freaking Toby and Andrew, when they score off in that kitchen, right? Imagine that one of the characters had like a clone saga or something like that. There's like a Ben Reilly and everything. Wasn't that weird how like they were like antagonists towards each other?
well, they were immediately just like, "Who the heck are you?" and just start shooting webs at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could do a clone saga. They could do the Jackal.
Also, yeah. How did he know to like hit the web shooter if he doesn't have web shooter?
Because Spider Sense.
I do like, since me and him are like doing the reading the early comics and reviewing them. They really take. If you're watching your Webheads every Monday, by the way, they really take like a lot of liberties with Spider Sense. Like, Spider Sense can do literally anything in the early comics, right? We've never seen it used in that way where he can literally like zone in on like one particular person or one particular danger. It's usually just like, oh, there's something behind me, I gotta move. So they use it in a really cool way, like in a different way too, which I don't think they have done yet.
Where he was like, something's off, and he kind of used it to like suss out that
yeah.
Norman was.
They didn't do that in any of the movies yet, have they? It's just
Well,
always like,
in the
oh,
MCU,
come
he
down.
never really depicted the Spider Sense until
Well,
Far
I'm
From
talking even
Home.
The other two franchises too, like, or two sets of movies.
It was mostly
Like, it's always just like, yeah, there's something
Yeah.
behind me, I gotta move, that type of thing.
yeah, which is
Or
what
there is a
Spider
danger
Sense
of
usually
what
is.
is it? Type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But we see in the comics that it's used for that type of thing, exactly what he used for, like sussing somebody out. So it's cool. It was cool.
Spider Sense solves all problems in the comic
I mean,
books.
yeah.
I'd be curious to read about like what the biological like spider species, like what that sense actually entails too, right? Because it's taken from the spider anatomy.
Right.
I think Stanley was like, you know what?
It's Stan Lee's loose interpretation of the science of spiders. In the early comics, he's just like, my Spider Sense says that Doctor Doom is in that warehouse over there.
Literally, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, I guess you haven't been watching our podcast, Webheads
Yeah.
Comic Club, every Monday. 'Cause
3
you did-
episodes out
pretending.
now. You can catch up.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah.
I would like that Stanley, didn't he say, like, if he thought about making the web shooters organic, that he would have just done that? He said that was a good idea. I swear I saw him in an interview say that once.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I did like how they commented on that. Like, they were like, how does that work? You can just grow. I was like, it's like, yeah. That was the one thing about the Raimi movies that were like, why did he do that? Like,
I liked it. I preferred it over the web shooters because if you're gonna get a Spider-Man and get powers, it makes sense. I also liked how they acknowledged, because like when you watch Spider-Man 2, like as a kid, you're like, why is he losing his powers? You know what I mean? I always see it as like, oh, okay, he's such a crisis mentally, right? I like how they So, oh, existential crisis, like that was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
But without the web shooters, how are you supposed to handicap Spider-Man in every fight he has when he runs out of web shooters?
He's sick. No.
I mean, that's
Get
what's...
a dog.
You need the web shooters because then he's like, oh no, I'm out of webs. What the heck am I supposed to do?
It was also cool to see, which I don't think we saw in the original trilogy, Toby Mcguire being like a little science whiz as well in the lab with his little lab coat, mixing serums and stuff. That was cool to see.
Yeah. We saw, well, yeah, he didn't do much science in the...
No.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield did,
Absolutely
but...
nothing.
No, Andrew
Yeah,
Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. If you need like your science project done, you go to Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
Amongst the three of them, right?
I also liked they did the shot of them all pointing to each other.
That was clever.
When he was like, Peter? And they were like, we're all Peter. I was like, I was literally sitting in the theater on premiere night, and I was just like, they did the thing! They did the thing! Like, they did it! But, great fan service. Love it. But, yeah, overall, I mean, what would you say was your guys' like favorite moment in the movie?
That's hard. It's such a long.
I would
Also,
say it's when Toby stops the glider, right, and he defends Norman, right, and just that whole thing that was the best part. Aside from that, May's death, Peter choosing not to talk to MJ, those are super Spider-Man moments. But I would say it's when Toby stops the glider.
any moment William Dafoe's on the screen.
I was gonna say, I have two that I would be very tied for. Obviously, when they group up, the three Spider-Men, and they're like, all right, we need to work together, and then they run, and they jump off, and the three of them are swinging together, and the music kicks in, like, that shot of that, like, that's awesome.
That's actually my favorite part.
That is obviously, like, that was exactly what I wanted it to be, but my favorite fight scene in the movie is definitely Peter and Green Goblin at the apartment. Like, that whole fight as they're fighting through the hallways, and, like, when he gets up on him, and he's elbowing him, and, like, just the Green Goblin in that scene is so, like, spooky. Like, that is my favorite action sequence.
No, my favorite part is the first thing you said, like when they were all talking about how they need to get their shit together and like work together actually, and like that whole like back and forth, and then when they actually start when they start swinging around and everything, you know, the theater I was in was going crazy with all that, like when they all like landed together and stuff.
Dude, people were going wild. I was there it was Thursday night, the first night, and people were freaking out. I loved it. Like, before the movie even started, we were sitting through the trailers, and someone goes, Spider-Man! And everyone's like, yeah! Like, just starts clapping, like, every time
Also,
people would show up.
I'm so happy
watch it.
that Daredevil was in this. That Charlie
Yeah,
Cox. Like,
people freaked out when he showed up, and he catches the
I-
brick.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that because when I watched it Thursday at 3 p.m., the very first showing, everyone cheered for Daredevil. When I watched it Tuesday, like you could hear like no one would clap. It was like hilarious.
there was one. I went on Monday night at like 6:30, and majority of people in there were like their parents taking their kid to see it. So first off, most annoying, it was like a zoo in there. Like everyone was just walking around. First off, I could have a whole podcast about my experience on Monday night with people just deciding to walk around the theater the whole time. Anyway, but there was literally just one like teenager in the back, like when Daredevil came on the screen, he's like, "Let's go!" And then like that was it.
I had
And then you hear kids go, "Who's that?" And then some guy went, "It's Daredevil!" Like it's like little children talking to each other. There was also a time where he was like, I wonder, like Ned Leeds was like, I wonder if there's like a different Ned Leeds. Kevin back goes, there's not.
Well, actually, there is, but
Also, he was like, we'll never forget you. Some kid in the back literally went, just write a note. Like, have her write a note. I was like, he's a genius.
I had
But the spell works that like all written evidence of Peter
goes away. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well,
Oh,
like
it's
video and stuff, because there was all the
That makes the
videos
most
and
sense,
everything.
right?
Yeah.
What about when Zendaya opens up her freaking lock screen, bro,
Yeah.
and you see some kid on there?
My
What the hell is that?
my opening night with everyone like cheering and stuff. Obviously, people like freaked out when Andrew Garfield first showed up. Freaked out when Tobey Maguire showed up. My favorite though was when the pumpkin bomb bounced onto the bridge. Everyone in the theater was like, oh, like you could hear everyone like gasping. And then as soon as he flew in through the smoke and he laughed, the entire theater just goes, yeah! Like everyone was clapping and screaming, and we were all, it was like a sports stadium. I mean, the room was shaking. Everyone was just like freaking out.
I loved how the cheers universally for Green Goblin were a lot louder than they were for Doc Ock. lending itself to us recognizing, right, DA, that Green Goblin has appeared over Doc Ock.
Very true.
And when the cheer for Toby was way louder than cheer for Andrew. That was super
I
satisfying as well.
actually, my second time I saw it, I thought it was funny when Andrew Garfield showed up. Everyone cheered, and literally someone goes, "It's the GOAT!" And I was like, "Ooh, that's a hot take. He's there. Toby Mcguire's the GOAT," but I don't know.
It was really cool when so like Andrew came in and then they said like, "Well, just keep doing it until you find Peter." Everyone's like,
Yeah.
It's gonna happen."
That was because honestly, I feel like people were generally louder for when Andrew Garfield showed up than when Toby showed up because
He was the first one.
that was when people realized that they were gonna be in the movie.
Yeah.
And so that was when you
It
were
was,
like,
like,
"Oh my
implicit
gosh,
that
yes!" Like
Toby was showing up as
they're
well.
gonna be
Yeah.
in it. Because then when they were like, "All right, let's keep trying," you were like, "Okay, it's gonna be Toby." And obviously everyone cheered, but I think that
I love the way they
Andrew
did
was
it,
more
too.
of a
It was, like,
surprise.
It was so like it just happened. Like again, going into that scene when they're in the house, I didn't expect it to be like, okay, this is when we're gonna be introduced
Yeah.
to like, the other two Spider-Men.
I thought they would show up when Tom was
Right.
crying. I thought they were gonna show
Yeah.
up and be like, "Hey, are you
Really?
okay?"
It was like so
That was
jarring.
sick.
It was so jarring when like they opened up the portal and it was just like Andrew Garfield standing there. I was like, oh Jesus, okay.
Yeah.
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 Because I thought for sure because I knew that they were going to show up around the, like, Act 3 beginning mark. And so right after Aunt May died and he was on the rooftop crying and there was that beautiful cinematography and that beautiful shot, I thought it was going to pan and you were going to see, like, a Spider-Man standing in the background. And I thought it was going to be basically the scene we ended up getting when they all met. I thought that was going to be their first appearance, was them kind of showing up and being like, "Hey, great power, great responsibility," and all of that. So I did not expect it with Ned and MJ.
Right.
One thing that I liked that they did was that they didn't need to explain like what was going on, because Toby and Andrew, they were observing what was going on in the news and everything. They knew the prediction that Tom was in. They knew that May died. They knew that his identity was revealed. I thought that was brilliant how they did that, and they didn't need to be okay. Let me explain to you all that's going on. I thought that the way that they handled that was brilliant.
Yeah, and Toby right from the get-go was like, "I've been looking for you guys. Like, you're his friends. Like, I know you."
It is cool to see how even the villains went and tried to like figure out where they are. And it was also really sad when Norman Osborn was like, "Oscorp doesn't exist. My son." Like you could see, like they obviously went around the universe like looking for their homes and like the people that they actually know, and just didn't find those things. A little sad.
And
Yeah.
Willem
I
Dafoe's
thought it was-
acting is so great in that scene. You actually feel
Well,
bad
that
for
one-
him.
Yeah.
That shot when like he takes his mask off in the alleyway, the way that Norman looks is like incredible. It looks like directly out of Spider-Man like 2002, right? Like William Dafoe looks older in the scene thereafter, but in that scene you're like, whoa, like I'm back to, I was crazy. I was like, no way.
And he's talking to the mask, and it's so
It's
good.
so sick.
Uh,
Yeah.
Someone in chat, I'm going to butcher your name terribly, Sajed Chowdhury, said, "Andrew was probably the best acting-wise of the three Spideys, though they all did well. Tom's best performance as Spider-Man." I definitely agree. This was definitely Tom's best acting. And he's always been a good actor, but Andrew, I love Andrew Garfield. I've always loved him as an actor.
Yeah, the most raw talent as a Spider-Man actor.
Yeah.
Everyone really showed up.
The
Like
most
all the
potential.
villains, all the Spider-Mans, they all really just showed up.
It was-
acted their ass.
Like, all three Spider-Men acted their ass off. Like, Aunt May was really good. I honestly, like, I did not like MJ in the first two movies. I feel like Zendaya's acting was actually really good in this movie. And they actually had chemistry, which was nice to see. And then, obviously, Willem Dafoe was incredible. Alfred Molina was perfect as Doc Ock. I think Jamie Foxx did great. I mean, they were all awesome.
Yep. Absolutely.
The future for this like Spider-Man in terms of movies and just all forms of media is very bright, which is really cool, and it's like very exciting to see that we're gonna get some really cool stuff down the line.
That was my biggest takeaway. Walking out of the theater, I was like, okay, obviously that was the greatest Spider-Man movie ever. I mean, they all came back, yada, yada, yada. But that ending was so good. And I'm so excited for the future of Spider-Man. I mean, we spent the majority of this video talking about the future of Spider-Man.
future.
But also, I mean, for a solid couple of days after the movie, like, I was legitimately sad. Like, I'm, like, heartbroken for my man Tom, because that ending is so sad when you really think about it. I mean, he lost everything.
Yeah.
Like, he thought he lost
The
everything.
ultimate Spider-Man decision.
Yeah,
That was
like
just
originally he
awesome.
lost his anonymity, and then his friends weren't gonna get to go to college, and he was feeling bad. And literally, if he had just had them forget that he was Spider-Man, he could have kept them in his life and gone on. But because he messed up, he lost everything, and that is just
In
so
a
sad.
sense, that's in a sense kind of similar. I don't know where else you could compare that to the comics, but I mean, with Dying Wish, he did kind of lose himself, right? So in a sense, it's kind of paralleling, right, where like he loses his entire life. You know what I mean?
Right,
The
Dying
thing is,
Wish and One More Day a little bit too.
if he just let them go back and just die or whatever's gonna happen to them too, like Aunt May would be alive, and that whole thing wouldn't have happened. So like, he really sacrificed his entire life for 5 villains, which is very Spider-Man-esque as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gonna be really sad. Like I definitely think when we go into the next movie, we're gonna see him grieving and him being like kind of depressed about it. It's probably gonna be in a darker place, and it's gonna be really sad to see because it's my boy.
And that's when the symbiote hits him.
I hope that he also like. I hope that we get scenes where like he remembers lessons that Toby and Andrew taught him, right? Where I don't know, just some kind of like acknowledgement of the two that were like mentors for him.
Yeah.
I would love that. And if we get another Andrew movie, I'd love to see him reflect on, those two. Like, oh yeah, I should probably name him like reflecting on what Toby told him, right?
Mhm.
Or if he actually fights Tom Hardy's Venom, he could be like, "I'm fighting an alien again now, finally."
Yeah, that'd be sick. Yeah,
that would be
that's
funny.
what he was saying about. This is what Peter too was telling me about it, alien with black goo or whatever.
Yeah.
So
That would be a funny reference, yeah. And we talked about it briefly, but how do you guys feel about the new costume?
I think it's fire.
Yeah, I love
Like,
it. I love that he stitched
truthfully,
it.
like it is the most comic accurate, but I would say that my favorite is still TASM 2 suit.
Yep. Andrew Garfield's is
Aesthetically,
definitely
right?
an amazing costume.
The
But
blue looks kind of like weirdly like metallic and kind of like, I don't know, like strange. The blue parts of the suit, but I can get past that.
it's a
It looks
brighter
great.
blue, that's for sure.
Yeah, it looks great. The fact that he's swinging around in the snow was awesome.
That was cool.
The fact he stitched himself was awesome. That
His web slinging is way low tier compared to Andrew and Toby for that matter. It seems like he's not very much in control, whereas like Andrew and Toby they're like straight masters.
right,
Still
right.
learning a little bit. I think I do think they kind of intentionally didn't give us a very good look at his new costume because they probably want to tweak it before the actual like next movie. So I think they just kind of gave us a tease of what it looks like, and then we'll get a better look at it, obviously.
I'm interested to
Well-
see what his reasoning to actually doing his own suit with no Stark technology or anything in it is, because he still has that
Yeah.
suit.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
It was
What?
well, first off, it was like I'm pretty sure it was pretty ripped up or damaged or whatever, wasn't it? At the end of the movie.
Yeah, and he doesn't
more
have the
than
Stark
that-
tech to fix it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like the AI system's not gonna know who Peter Parker is, and also Stark Industries like Happy doesn't know who Peter is, right?
Right.
And also it wasn't like Stark Industries like under fire, like
Yeah.
because the whole
Yeah.
Mysterio thing, like I wouldn't say the companies for that matter, but I would love to if they acknowledge that Peter made this suit the way it is because of from inspiration from the other two
Right.
Spider-Man.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that's ultimately, I think that's the best thing about this ending that everyone wanted to see happen is like he doesn't have the Stark technology anymore. He doesn't, he doesn't have his Edith glasses. We can call drone strikes on what, like he's back to being a kid in a cloth. He's in a onesie. I think that's good. Like that was my biggest thing going into this movie was like somebody break that Iron Spider costume because it's cool and all, but I'm tired of him having the Iron Spider costume. Like I want him to just be Spider-Man. I liked his costume in Far From Home. This costume is so much better. I'm excited that he's back to being Spider-Man proper.
It's gonna be cool to see how he changes the cloth suit in different ways. Like if there is a black and red version that he makes, and
I hope he
exactly
gets
how
another
they-
suit additionally, right?
Also,
After one,
Seja,
PS4 suit.
I'm saying his name wrong. The guy in the chat, he said,
That'd be lit.
"Do you think we're gonna lose the new costume for the symbiote black suit in the next movie?" I laugh and kind of cry at the thought. I do think we will lose it for the black suit in the new movie, but then obviously he's gonna end up ditching the black suit, so he'll keep the cloth suit. But
well, maybe
Hopefully we
he
get an
makes a
actual
cloth black
comic
suit like he does in
black suit.
comics.
maybe.
Maybe he'll make a cloth.
A comic accurate. Hopefully,
black
like it kind of like yeah. Anyways, hopefully we get the logo right of the OG black suit instead of what we got in Spider-Man 3.
Solid black, not the webbed.
Uh-huh. And hopefully we do get. I would see another costume in addition. A Spider-Man PS4 suit would be lit, from my point of view.
Oh, with the white, yeah, I would love that too.
I think that's sick. Yeah,
Or the first one, like the very first one he wears, or like the one with the white symbol.
No, the white.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the white that would be pretty sick.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm team red and blue. I mean, I liked his red and black because that is true to the original, but red and blue. I mean, you gotta have the red and blue. Just red and blue.
both.
That's why I think they nailed it. I mean, this new costume that they teased is perfect.
I wonder if the eyes are gonna move. I mean, probably not. So how is he gonna? How are they gonna?
No.
It's gonna be classic, just eyes straight up, solid like the first two.
It'll look
first
back
two movies.
like Andrew Garfield and Toby. I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, I like that. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's like classic for us. That's what we've
It's-
seen growing up. So.
It's gonna be Spider-Man. Like, that's the only way I can put it. Like,
And it felt like that when he was swinging around. It was like this is Spider-Man. Like,
the
this is like
tone
old
of the
movie.
movie was totally different after
was
that
crazy.
spell was cast. I mean,
Yeah.
it was immediately just felt totally different. And that's where, like, walking out of there, I was like, I feel like I just watched the first 5 minutes of the next Spider-Man movie.
Yep. It's in PS4
I can't wait.
in movie form.
I can't wait. Like, No Way Home is incredible, but really, I think the next movie is going to be the best Spider-Man movie ever. Easily.
I don't know about that, but I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I think like No Way Home and like the OGs are kind of like in a place that can't be touched. But
They
if
can
they
al-
can make
they
a
can
really
always one-up
compelling
themselves.
story, and a really compelling story with like really cool villain motives and just all that, that'd be really cool. Really cool psychological things.
They can
proper.
make a Spider-Man 2
artistic
movie
movie.
where it's like a Spider-Man story with a good script and good acting and good dialogue and a good story. Like that's just one villain. Again, they could do that. And it could be one of the
Predator's
best.
Last Hunt would be lit.
I'm curious to see what director they choose for the new
I
trilogy.
think Christopher Nolan, right?
He might do too much with it.
John Williams, freaking George Lucas, bro. Could you imagine?
Imagine they bring in. I mean, Sam Raimi's working on Doctor Strange. Imagine they bring in Sam Raimi.
That would be fire.
I don't know. I think they should do like. I don't know. I don't know enough directors, but whoever they pick, I trust them to pick a good choice.
If they have like the Blade Runner 2049 director,
You
he
know what?
also did Dune.
Fine. I'll step up. I'll do it. I'll come in.
The three of us.
It's-
I'll clear my schedule.
Let's do it. The three of us will make it.
We get an email from Marvel Studios.
It's
like,
just
after this
it's
call.
it's 3 movies, no Spider-Man, just the Green Goblin in it.
Marvel Studios hits us up.
There's
They're
a-
like, we
a
saw
white
your
Goblin in
video. We heard your thoughts on the new trilogy. We'd like to hire you to write and direct it. Signed.
Right, yeah.
I'm there. I'll do it. I'll do it for free. You don't even have to pay me.
Yeah, no, I think this new character called the White Goblin that I've been cooking up is going to be pretty great on screen for the next
You gotta
15
get
years.
hired as a writer for Marvel Comics and make that happen, because you could do it.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
They might not like White Goblin that as a name. That might be like,
Right, it's a little racy, I get it.
yeah,
but-
yeah. But you could come up Pale Goblin.
Yeah, it's,
Or maybe
that works.
Green Goblin's costume is like bleached, whatever. Some kind of like, I don't know, some fight thing, kind of like what happened with Spider-Man's costume in this one at the beginning.
Yeah.
Pale Goblin's actually pretty good. I know it's really corny and silly, but that's exactly. I mean, it's the Green
comic book,
Goblin.
Yeah.
The Green Goblin, the Pale Goblin. I mean, why not?
Yeah. Just don't do another, like, Hobgoblin. We've had enough Hobgoblins.
I think we
I
should.
think that they could do Hobgoblin really cool.
They
They
could.
do the flying Hobgoblin with the sword and shit.
Yeah, that was the most
Oh,
recent
that
in the
was pretty
comics.
sick.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It was
I'm a-
the
I'm a-
younger teenage Hobgoblin.
With the fire sword, right?
Yeah, and then he became Goblin Knight, and then I think he died.
Spoilers.
That was like years ago in the comics.
Yeah,
and
for
stuff.
comics.
Hey,
that came
listen.
out long ago.
When we get to the 600s and the 700s, I'm gonna be really upset with you.
I might be wrong. I don't actually know. It's been years since I read those comics. I just know he's not around in the modern issues.
No, I'm playing around.
You're gonna get a lot of things spoiled for you, sonny boy.
Whatever.
But anyway, we've been going for about an hour and a half. So any final thoughts? Anything you guys wanted to discuss that we didn't touch on?
probably have a lot of thoughts once we end this, and I'm like thinking about it later. But for right now, the future is very bright and it's very exciting.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That is my biggest takeaway. I think this movie was obviously a love letter to Spider-Man fans, and I think they kind of ended it in a way that was their way of saying, we hear you, we understand Spider-Man, and we're going to make some good Spider-Man movies going forward.
It feels good. It feels good to have like to have my guy back.
Yeah. Properly.
Right.
It's going to be... I want them to release the next movie now, and I want it to have John Bernthal's Punisher in it, because that would be freaking awesome. And the symbiote suit and everything else. Person in the chat, whose name I cannot pronounce, said if they're doing a symbiote Spidey, that he wants Mr. Negative to be the villain, since it would have a good parallel between them and be kind of a gang war to be the next Kingpin.
Yes. That's who I'd want. I want Kraven and Mr. Negative.
I've never been as big of a fan of Mr. Negative, but
his power is so lit, dude, where he can like turn people and have them want. Like,
it could be interesting. It could be interesting. And I mean the Feast Center is already a thing, so they could do it that way. Like they could have Peter volunteering at the Feast Center since Aunt May's gone. He's like,
and that's where Miles Morales could come into play too, right?
Yeah.
Or Miles Morales is like dad or whatever. He could die. That'd be kind of sick.
Well, then they would just be doing Spider-Man PS4 the movie, and that would be too similar.
Get the best Spider-Man movie ever, because that's the best interpretation of
Can they do
Spider-Man.
Stegtron in a movie? I would love that. I love Stegtron.
Have him just running around. That's what I'm saying. Have him just show up robbing a bank, and he fights him in like one scene. He doesn't have to be the main villain.
I'm not even being stupid. I actually love Stegtron.
Yeah, I agree. I want more, like, have the Rhino show up. Like, not that mech suit Rhino, but just like a fat dude in a Rhino suit show up.
You don't want Paul Giamatti? Come on.
Paul Giamatti's great, but that mech suit was...
That was not great, yeah.
Yeah. But I think they could do some fun stuff like that. But I think we're going to wrap it up here, because we talked for quite some time, but I'm sure we'll have some more thoughts in the future. Maybe we can come back and do another one of these live streams. So I'm sure we'll reunite on the channel at some point. Yes. But thanks everyone hanging in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Anyone who watches this back as a video, make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments down below. What were your thoughts on No Way Home? If you were making the next trilogy of Spider-Man movies, what would you do? I'd love to have some discussions in the comments about what we would like to see from the future of Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's a really cool question.
I think we can all agree that the future of Spider-Man is very bright. But thanks for tuning in. Thank you guys for hopping in the call and making time for this. Appreciate you coming out. And peace out, YouTube.